Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of 2D Prototyping in Unity. My name is Kasanas. In the last episode we made our character jump. Our character is looking pretty darn awesome. He can move around, he can jump, but he can't yet defend himself. So in today's episode, guys, we're going to be taking a look at creating the projectile. It's going to be broken up into two different episodes again, I think, because there's a fair amount we're going to be going into in this episode. We're going to be building all of our assets, building a particle system for the first time, and then we're going to be adding the code that makes this thing fly around, etc., in the following episode. All right, guys, so let's get started. Okay guys, so there are a number of things we need to do to be able to build our projectile. Basically, our ultimate goal is to be able to build something, a prefab, that's going to be sitting in here and that we can instantiate or create in the game every single time the player presses the fire button. Alright, so in order to do so, let's start off by building the actual missile. Okay, I'm going to reuse the rocket because I'm lazy. That's all. You guys should make yourselves a real sexy something or other here. I'm pretty lazy. So I'm going to be using this rocket. Now that's obviously far too big. Let's try it at 0.3 and 0.3. That's fine. That's fine. I want to be able to see it. 0.3 is fine. And I want it to be facing in the -90 direction. Okay, that is my actual, let's not call it missile. I've already renamed this down here into player ship so we wouldn't get confused. But let's call this missile. All right, that's our missile. Now, this missile, it's going to travel along. We're gonna be able to apply a force to it ultimately. Which means it's going to have a rigid body, but we're going to apply a force to this, and it's going to fly along, and it's going to crash into something, or miss something, or it's going to crash into something anyway, and it's going to explode. That's our goal, to make it explode like this. Okay, that's our ultimate goal. That's a few episodes from now, when we get into creating an enemy and creating enemy damage. But for now, guys, what we're going to need from this is we're going to need to set it up so that it can crash into something. We already know that in order for objects to touch each other or to interact, we need to add to it a collider of some kind. So I'm going to add a simple box collider to this missile. It's surrounding it perfectly, and I'm not going to change anything. It's perfectly fine the way it is. All right. The only thing I'm going to change is trigger. Bam. Is trigger. Is trigger means ultimately it's for the code. It's for the code. But is trigger means that another collider that enters or exits or stays inside of this collider can affect the code. So the code in some way, the code will trigger whenever something touches it, whenever something enters inside, exits, or stays within inside of this collider. All right, that's what isTrigger does. It basically allows code to be used. All right, so isTrigger is going to be turned on, and we're going to see more about that when we get into the coding episode next. All right. So this object, this missile, is going to be flying along. It's going to hit something and it's going to explode. Now we've got a couple of issues here because I want there to be smoke. I want there to be smoke coming out the back of this rocket, and I want there to be smoke that's kind of left along as it travels along, as it moves along. I want smoke to be kind of left behind. When we destroy this object, when we say, okay, boom, it hit something, we destroy it, I don't want that smoke to be destroyed as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to right-click inside here. I'm going to say I'm just going to say create empty, and I'm going to create a brand new game object. All right, and I'm going to change it to 0, 0, 0. You can always say reset right here to make it go to 0, 0, 0. And I'm going to name it Projectile. All right, and I'm going to use this as the parent for our missile. I'm going to have inside a projectile, I'm going to use this projectile to actually apply my forces to. So I'm going to apply forces to this projectile right here. But I'm also going to use it as the parent of the particle system. So when I destroy my rocket, I can leave my projectile, this parent object, on the screen for a little bit longer so the smoke has a chance to dissipate. All right, that's my idea behind it. My rocket can still explode, the smoke can dissipate, and then the entire thing gets deleted. So there's a couple of things we're going to need on this parent object. This parent object is going to drag any of its children object along with it. So I want to use this projectile to actually apply forces to. Physics, 2D, and I'm going to add a rigid body. We already know from our character, that rigid body makes this thing into a physics-based object, and I can apply forces to it. I'm going to apply forces in order to make this thing fly. All right, that is the first thing I'm going to do with my rocket. All right, with the projectile. And you know what? I think that's the only thing I'm going to do for now. I'm going to add a couple of scripts a little bit later on, but that is for a later episode. So the only thing we had to do right now is add this rigid body. Okay, that is going to allow everything to fly. Now, the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to add to here, create a particle system. Boop. This is our default particle system. It's really, really ugly. It basically uses the default particle material, or the default particle, to create these white blobs that get spread out over a specific distance. I'm going to rename this right away, and let's call this missile smoke particle system. All right, the missile smoke particle system. It doesn't look like a missile smoke particle system yet, but we're going to make it look that way right now. We can take a look at this system right down here, and we've got a bunch of different tabs along here. These tabs will change what you're seeing. So let's say we say the start lifetime, it's currently at 5 seconds. Let's just say instead of 5 seconds, it was 0.25 seconds. So you can see right away that my particles are dying off much quicker. So we're basically going to go through here and adjust all, or at least some, of these different headings in here in order to create a attractive particle system. Particles in Unity are really powerful. In fact, in almost any game engine they are. I really like the particle system here in Unity. It's quite simplistic to use, I think. So let's take a look at it right now. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to change the particles. This is the default particles, and we're not going to use it. We really want it to look like smoke is coming out the back of this rocket. So we're going to come down here, and we're going to use something that's called texture sheet animation. Now, you have a choice. If we take a look, maybe I'm skipping ahead here, and I'm not really sure the best way to teach this because it's a pretty complicated subject. Right now we're using this default particle material, and ultimately we don't want to. We ultimately want to use a material that looks like smoke is puffing out the back of our rocket. But right now it's using this, and you can go through and you can continue using blobs like this. You can change the color of the blobs. Like if I go back up here, I can say I don't want the blobs to be white. I want them to be, red, or whatever you want. You can change all that kind of stuff. But what I really love using is the actual textured animation, and that allows you to do some really amazing effects really, really cheaply. Now, let's go into our materials for a minute, and we're going to create a new material. So create, boop, material, and let's call this smoke trail. It doesn't really matter what we call it. Smoke trail material. All right, it's going to be our smoke trail material. I want to change this albedo. I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to add to it our smoke sprites. I want to make sure, okay, so that's good. Our smoke sprite. You can see how it changed down here. I'm going to change this from opaque into transparent. Okay, so now I can see through it. You can also use cutout. I'm not sure what the difference between the two is. Cutout, actually you want to use cutout. Cutout removes all of the alpha. All right, so use cutout. So that's our new material. Great. Let's go back to our smoke down here. And let's change the material. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go down to our renderer, and instead of using the default particles, let's change this to smoke and see what happens. So boom, we get our smoke coming out. Now that looks poopy still. We don't like that. That doesn't look good. That does not look good at all. But at least now it's smoke. What we really want to do is we want to set it up so it's an animated texture. All right, here is our texture sheet animation, and we're going to say use that instead. Number of tiles, 1, 1. No, it's not actually. In the X, it is 1, but in the Y, no, maybe it's backwards. In the X, it's actually 4. Is that right? There we go. So now what we're getting is we're getting a puff of smoke coming out. Now it's going all over the place, and we don't want to do that. But at least now we're only getting a puff of smoke. All right, I'm going to go back up here. Instead of having such a slow cycle time, let's say the lifetime is 5. Now you can see if you watch an individual particle, you can see that over time how they're growing, all right? And they grow. And basically what it's doing is it's going through that animation sheet and saying, okay, after so much time I have to have this one, after so much time I have to have that one, etc. Let's make this maybe 3 for now. There we go. So that's perfect. Now, there's a couple of things we are going to change right now. We're going to change the emission. I want to come out at a rate of 1. All right, so it's only coming out in little tiny puffs. Now, I might change that a little bit later on. We're going to go back and we're going to take a look at exactly how we want to set it up to make sure it's looking the way we like. 1 is not what we want. I'm just showing this to you so that we can go back and you can see the changes I make, so it's not going all over the place. What I do want to happen is I don't want it to travel very far. That's for sure. Right now, if we see the start speed, it's really high and it's traveling a fair distance. I don't want it to. I only want it to travel a very short distance. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust my start speed, and I'm going to adjust this to 0. I don't want it to actually move. All right. So now let's move this over a little bit so we can actually see it, and I'll put it back at 0 in a minute. It's right on top of the camera. All right. So now we can see that our smoke is kind of appearing, it's not appearing in one location, but it's appearing much more contained, and it's not really moving anywhere now, which is what we wanted. That's the first thing we changed, is the start speed. The next thing we're going to change is, let's go down here, and we're going to take a look at the shape that it's coming out of. Our current shape is a cone. And the cone has a very wide, well, the angle doesn't really matter. It has a very wide radius. We're going to adjust this radius down. So you saw how the blue thing right there got much smaller. All right? The blue thing got much smaller. That is the radius of the cone itself. Let's make this into 0.1. All right? So now we can see that our smoke is only appearing in one location. Perfect. I like that. I don't mind that at all. That looks pretty darn good. All right. So we're going to leave that like that. The last thing that I want to do is this gravity modifier. It's not the last thing I want to do. The gravity modifier. I want this smoke to have a slight upward trend, like it's drifting smoke. Okay. We know that if we give it a value of 1, these things are just going to fall out. It's going to poop smoke out. All right. I don't want it to do that. I want this to float upwards. So I'm going to give it a value of negative 0.2. And even that's too much. Let's say negative 0.05. That might even be too much, but we'll take a look at it a little later on. We can actually adjust that as we go. So you can see that right now I've got some gravity, a negative gravity affecting this guy here. That's probably better. -1, slight drift. All right. So far, so good. This is basically all you have to do for particles. You have to go through and adjust the settings until you get what you're looking for. All right, let's go down a little farther. We have a number of choices here. Velocity over time. Is it speeding up? Is it slowing down? What's happening to it over time? Is there a directionality to it? And I'm not going to add anything to that. Limit velocity over lifetime. I'm not going to do that. Force over lifetime. I've kind of got the force I like on it, so I'm not going to worry about that. Color over lifetime. This is the next one I want to adjust. So what I want to basically do, I'm going to click here. What I basically want to do is I want this thing here to start off as an opaque cloud, and then slowly I want it to drift off into having an alpha of 0. So it should fade away over time. They should pop up and they should fade away over time. All right, that's what that is. So I'm going to leave that. That's good. Size over lifetime, I'm not too worried about. We could do things like adjust how big our clouds were, and we can give it kind of a random value up in here if we want to. Let's try that right now. I'm jumping back and forth, guys, and I'm sorry. This is usually how you do particle systems. You change something, you see how it looks, and you make some changes. So our start lifetime is currently 3. Let me show you this because this is pretty interesting. This little arrow here lets you choose whether it's a single value, a constant value, whether it's a curve, so there might be some on either end, or if it's a randomly generated value between 0 and something, or between any number, like between 2 and 5, let's say. So you're going to get some bigger, some smaller. All right. You don't know what size you're going to get. Sorry, that's the lifetime, how long they're going to live. You can do the same thing with the start size, and I'm going to do that. Start size. I'm going to make a random between, let's say, 1 and 2. So I'm going to get some bigger puffs and some smaller puffs. All right. You can go through it, and you can have some kind of random rotation. So your clouds are always in a different rotation. somewhere between 0 and let's say 90. So I don't know which way they're going to be. All right, that's how they're starting off. And we can go through and we can change any of these things you want. Start color, etc., etc. All right. Let's go down here. That's too far down. I'm going to change, let's see, rotation over lifetime. Let's give this thing here a slight spin. So you can see my smoke now is kind of like rolling off. All right. And once again, you can give it a random angular velocity, random between 0. Let's make it between negative 45 and 45. So you're kind of getting roiling in there. It's kind of like roiling smoke. We're going to go through and we're going to make a bunch of different changes to this in order to affect how it's going to look. Okay? One thing we want to make sure, however, is that when we move, let's go up here because this is where we're going to affect it. When we actually move our projectile, and too bad we're not going to see it. When we actually move our projectile, okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to say don't maximize on play, and I'm going to say play. Oh, I forgot that was it. That didn't work how I wanted it to. Hold on one second. Let me make this projectile for now is kinematic, so it's not going to fall. Ultimately, we don't want it to be that. I want it to shoot, but for now, I'm going to say is kinematic. When I say play, we see our smoke coming out. All right? Watch what happens when I drag this around. That is not what we want. We want our smoke trail to be left behind. All right, so I'm going to stop this for a second. I'm going to go back to my smoke trail, and I'm going to say simulation space is, instead of local, our simulation space is world. All right, you want to make sure you change that. Now watch what happens when I say play. We get our smoke coming out, and when I move this, oops, I'm moving the wrong thing. When I move my projectile, the smoke is staying wherever it's been created. All right. Now, you can decide how you want your puffs of smoke to work. I'm going to change it right now to have more puffs. Let's say, I don't know, 10. Doesn't really matter. Play. And now when I move this guy around, my projectile around, I'm going to be getting a smoke trail. All right. So that is how our smoke is working. All right, and you have to decide how long. Those are pretty big puffs. You have to decide how long you want it to survive. How much smoke you want coming out. All that kind of stuff for yourself. Okay, all that kind of stuff for yourself. Pause. All right, let's change this off so it's no longer is kinematic because I don't want it to be is kinematic. I think, guys, that's all we need to do in this episode. I think that sets up everything the way I want it to be set up. I have to add a lot of code now, and basically what this is going to be about from this point on is once you've got... Oh, no, actually I'm lying. There is something else we have to do. We're going to have a location on our character where this shoots out from, but you know what? We're going to add that later on. We're going to add that in our next episode, in our coding episode, so you can see how everything ties together. And it'll probably be much easier to do it that way rather than trying to. Oh, I do want to do one thing. Pre-warm, looping pre-warm. Watch what happens. I want to show you guys one more thing. Watch what happens. If I say with pre-warm off and I say play. Oh, I forgot. Hold on. Is kinematic again. If I turn it on, I say play, the smoke doesn't come out right away. It's actually a second before the smoke actually puffs out. We have a pretty short lifetime, so it comes out pretty fast, and our duration's kind of short, so it comes out pretty fast. But if we say pre-warm, what that means, the pre-warm check button says already have some smoke in place when you come alive. So as soon as I say play, there's already smoke there. All right, there's already smoke existing. Move the wrong thing again. There's already smoke existing as soon as we said play. It was automatically there. All right, so guys, what I want you to do is I want you to go through right now, make your smoke look the way you think it should look, make the way you like it, and in the next episode, we are going to start actually writing the code. All right, I know this was kind of a fast introduction to particles. There's a lot to learn in particles, and there's a lot of ways to make this stuff look really, really awesome. A lot of magical effects you can make, or fireballs, or pretty much anything you want to make in a game. Particles is what makes your game look really good. In my opinion, that's the truth. The right set of particles makes your game look really, really awesome. So guys, take a few minutes and make sure your particles are working the way you want them to. You will notice that if I don't click on it, you don't see it. If I click off of it, it's no longer being actually generated. So make sure you've got your particles clicked on and in order to be able to see what you're actually creating. Alright guys, I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. If you did, let me know with a thumbs up. If you didn't, a thumbs down is perfectly fine. It helps me. A thumbs down is going to help me. As long as you just don't say, oh, thumbs down, it sucked. I want you to go down to the bottom, write in the comments, and say what you liked and what you didn't like, okay? If you didn't like it for some reason, you're saying, I don't know. You talk too fast. That's probably true. I'm a fast talker. Then that's fine. Just let me know, guys. If you think I'm going too quickly in the episodes or whatever, thumbs down. You're going too fast. The episodes are too quick. Or you're covering too much or whatever you want. Just let me know what it is so I can make changes to what I'm doing. All right, everyone. Thumbs up, thumbs down, comments down below. And if you haven't done so, please take a few seconds to subscribe. Have yourselves a wonderful day, everyone.